Welcome to Code Voices in STEM, the podcast that highlights the experiences, challenges, and career stories of culturally and linguistically diverse women in STEM. Join us as we explore the stories of these inspiring women and learn more about the diverse contributions they are making to the world of science. Here is your host, Dr. Chloe Lim.
Hi everyone, this is Dr. Chloe Lim, and you're listening to Code Voices in STEM, a podcast that highlights the experience, challenges, and career stories of culturally and linguistically diverse women in STEM. I begin today by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people, traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge the really deep contribution that they make to the life of our city and our region. Now, in this new season of Code Voices in STEM podcast, I'm very excited to highlight Canberra Women in STEM. I'm honored to have Associate Professor Lubna Alam with me today as our first podcast guest for this special podcast series. So Dr. Lubna Alam is an Associate Professor of Information Systems at the Deakin Business School, Deakin University. Co-founder of the volunteer-run not-for-profit ALO Enlightened Women Inc., member of the Ministerial Advisory Council for Multiculturalism, and a winner of the ACT Outstanding Excellence Award for Diversity and Inclusion at the 2023 ACT Multicultural Awards and Westfield Local Hero 2023 as well. Now, Lubna was also a finalist for the ACT Women of the Year in 2024, Women in ICT's Wicked Woman of the Year in 2022, and ABC Canberra Multicultural Champion in 2022 for her contribution to gender equality and empowering migrant women. Now, with nearly 2 decades working as an academic and an applied researcher, she is passionate about socio-technical and empowering impacts of emerging technologies on individuals and not-for-profits. So welcome, Lubna, to the podcast. We're really, really excited and privileged to have you here today.
Thank you, Chloe. For hosting me today. It's great to be here.
I'm reading your bio and I can see that you're a very, very high achiever.
No, these are just, some things that you gather in your journey of life, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's an interesting one. So I'm curious to hear more about your background and how did you get into STEM and in particular in information systems?
It's an interesting story. It's very simple. I'm from Bangladesh as a heritage, right? So in Bangladesh, frankly, there are only 2 professions, engineers and doctors. So from the very early stages of my life, right, in my education childhood, I was always told I have to be either one of those. Now, if you were, to be seen to be a good student and achieving, things in Bangladesh, you would have to be in one of those career pathways. Now, I was always afraid of becoming a doctor because, I'm very much horrified with dead bodies. And so I always imagined doctors mean dead bodies. And, I had this if you like, visual in my head. So I made sure during my early, year 11 and 12, I dropped biology. So my parents could not ask me to do medicine. So obviously I chose the pathway to engineering. But because the other dream, I think everyone in Bangladesh always have is that they would go overseas and, study in reputed universities. So I was looking for a scholarship because I knew that my parents wouldn't be able to afford me going overseas. So luckily I got the AusAid scholarship in Australia to study IT. And I ended up doing Bachelor of Information Technology, then followed up, with Masters of Information Technology. And that's how I got into STEM. Now, obviously, I always had a logical mind. I was never good at literature. And I realized that, science and technology, must be the way that, attracts me.
Well, that's very interesting, isn't it? I guess that parental expectation does come into play, especially in certain cultures as well. I can completely understand that. Because coming from an Asian background, my parents didn't actually have that expectation of me, but I know of other people who, become doctors or lawyers or accountants because that's what is expected of them. And so yeah, it's interesting that, you because you're afraid of the dead bodies that you jump into engineering instead.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I still don't watch horror movies, I'm still I'm still like that. I haven't grown up in that way.
Yeah. So I'm curious to understand more, I guess, now that when you went into engineering, how did you find, like, I guess, studying and developing your skills in that area? Did you enjoy it? And were there any challenges that you may have faced?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I've done an engineering degree at the end because, due to some changes, I ended up doing a Bachelor of Information Technology, which is different from engineering.
Mm.
But definitely it's still a very technical, degree where we looked at, if you like, technology implementations and some programming. But I was always interested in the people side of, implementation. So I was interested in how technology is adopted and then how the use practices change and how does that change individuals and organizations. So I ended up doing specialization in information systems, which is a discipline which takes a socio-technical view of technology. And my interest has always been emerging technology, how technologies disrupt existing ways of doing things. So I get excited by, when I started my career as an associate lecturer at that time, 2003 and onwards, I think, 2006 and onwards, that social media took, big hype. So I started my journey, if you like, my research looking at social media, then moving into every 5 years I move into new emerging techs, and I did my PhD on crowdsourcing later on, which became a thing of how do you get other people engaged, non-employees engaged in organizational work. So that was very interesting for me. And then now slowly I'm moving into nowadays into AI and impact of AI, human collaboration. So you can see there that I have a very much interest in disruptive technology, emerging technologies impacting the way we work and we socialize and so on.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important topic that you've touched on because all of us are impacted by AI and all of us probably in some ways attached to social media, perhaps a bit too much. That's my own admission.
I'm
And
also guilty. Yeah.
yeah. And it's amazing how technology, how we now are so dependent on technology in what we do for our everyday lives. And the fact that, we've got all this, I think, potential opportunities as well as challenges, I guess, that comes with emerging technologies.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting topic. So you've done a few different things now, from I guess looking at social media to crowdsourcing to AI. Can you share with us a project or achievement that you're really proud of in your career?
I think that one of the project that I must mention, or it's my PhD. I think everybody's, in academic life, the biggest journey everybody takes is that the requirement to do a PhD, and a PhD is always has to be a topic of passion. So when I joined as an associate lecturer, it was quite an unorthodox appointment because I didn't have a PhD when I started a career, in academia. So so after a couple of years, I was supposed to take up, if you like, the PhD journey, and I had to find a topic that would last longer because I was working full time, and I couldn't afford to leave my job because we had mortgage to pay. So this is a typical migrant story. So I had to find a topic that would last 5 to 6 years, but it will be still interesting. So that's when I got interested into looking at crowdsourcing, and I did it. My PhD was on National Library's Trove. Trove. So if you're familiar with Trove, that is where Trove started off with newspapers. From 1850 to 1950, they digitized the newspapers, and there were lots of mistakes, right? The library didn't have the staff to correct them, so they got public to do it, and it was amazing response. So I had to study that case, and I found so many interesting things. So that would be, obviously, doing the PhD would be one of my big achievement, because to tell you, I also got pregnant during my PhD. So I had to raise a newborn, work full time, do a PhD, and I think it took me 6.5 years. So it's a long time, investment. I think what is challenging in that space is keeping you motivated, to do the work needed. and also being able to produce, a work that is regarded as high quality. And I'm happy because my project was also, was nominated for Best Thesis Award in IS Conference in Australia. And also I've got multiple, top journal publications from there, which I'm quite proud of. So I think I still feel like that was my most challenging project in terms of the longer term. And also the outcomes I've achieved, being able to complete it, I think was for me the biggest, challenge.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I can't imagine having to do a PhD while raising a newborn and working full time. I think that's a huge achievement and huge kudos and congratulations for being able to pull that off and still being able to produce amazing work as well. So
Thank you.
really a classic example of a person who can actually have it all, a woman who can have it all in a way.
Uh,
With some challenges and support.
yeah, but you obviously need your support from your partner, and I was lucky to have that support, from my partner. But I guess as a migrant, we always, suffer that we don't have really other support structure. When we migrate, we individuals come, right, and we don't have our family here. So this is something that migrants will always face, and but I think if you can plan it, so planning, time management, and keeping your focus, and being passionate, being passionate about what you do. You need to love your work. And that's the only way you can keep going. That's what I found. Because at that time, as I said, 3 things, right, in my life, but I think I managed to complete it.
Yeah, I can completely understand because being a migrant myself, my family is not here with us as well. Like like my husband's family is in Melbourne, my family is in Malaysia, and they occasionally come over to visit to take care of the children during the school holidays. But the everyday life, day-to-day life, it's something that we have to manage on our own. And I think, like you said, I think that planning and organization is so crucial. And being able to manage your time well to be able to do all the things that you are passionate about and to do them well too. So that's really great. So you mentioned some of the challenges that a migrant may have in their life, just living everyday life. But have you come across any challenges working in a STEM career as a culturally diverse woman?
Now, it's a good question because I probably came as a skilled migrant, right? I came to study as an international student. Then I took, a skilled migration. So I probably had quite a privileged start in that way that, my accommodation, everything was paid for, and the scholarship was so good I could, save up and do my master's with that money. So I didn't struggle in that way. But I guess the challenges, if you ask me, some of the challenges I faced in the STEM career was that the first time when I took the job, as an associate lecturer, and I had some mentoring. And the first thing I was told by my mentor is that, Lubna, you have to do double the work. You have to achieve double the KPI to be, eligible for promotion. Now, that at that time was quite, shock. It was a shock to me to hear that. But that is probably a reality in Australia, especially in some of the disciplines like STEM, where women are already quite underrepresented, right? Then cult women, being culturally and linguistically diverse means that we have language barriers, we have social assimilation barriers. We cannot get into the culture of their drinking culture. So I was never invited, if you like, to go for drink, coffee or drinks on Fridays. So I always felt like I was falling out of that clique, that happens. So I think to start with, that's a reality. It's perceived, but it's also probably there is now evidence that it's kind of true that, people from, if you like, culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds do face promotion challenges. So I would say that was one of the biggest challenge that I faced. But the way I got over them is I think I had sponsors, I had mentors. I have great mentors, and interestingly, they were all male mentors, because maybe being in the, faculty where I was the only second woman, in that time. And people used to just call me kiddo because I was very young when I started, right? Just straight after my master's. So in that way, I was quite, well looked after. and people wanted me to do well. So that mentoring, helped, and that sponsorship also, helped me to progress in career.
So tell me a little bit more about that sponsorship and mentoring that you have, because I think, for me, when I first started in my academic career, I didn't actually have a great idea of what mentoring was supposed to look like. I never knew about sponsors when I started out. And for me, I thought it was just reaching out to someone and then asking them to be a mentor, but then never really following up on that relationship. So if you could share a little bit more about how people can develop the mentors, or like how can they reach out to people and ask them for sponsorship and things like that, would you be able to share that with us, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess in academia, usually the mentorship starts with your PhD supervisor, right? So I had my supervisor was Professor John Campbell, and he was a man with heart of gold. I always, tell. So he always, mentored me in terms of not just doing good work, if you like, but also in terms of life progression, how I should be thinking about future jobs and, promotion, where to publish, how to go for grants and things like that. So he was beyond just, work. He was giving me advice, life advice as well. So I always tell that he was like my father in Australia, because, my father still lives in Bangladesh, right? So he was like that. So he had probably the mentoring role, but what I saw him doing is that he would sponsor me into events. He would tell me, Lubna can volunteer for this, or Lubna would be good for that. He will, and that's called sponsorship. So mentoring is sort of the guidance that you receive, on a regular basis from somebody, and usually best mentors are probably in your own field, so that they can guide you well and in the progression. So for me, academic mentor was probably the way to go. But sponsorship means that they're also willing to advertise for you, promote you into places. Not that they will give you the next promotion, but it's about giving you that visibility and sponsoring you. So I'm sure, Professor John Campbell has done a lot for me, but unfortunately, Professor Campbell passed away recently. I mean, it's been 5-6 years, and I find myself without a mentor and sponsor. And the challenge now that I have is finding that consistent mentor in your life. So the way you progress is that you find, another mentor, and you find that allyship as well. Yeah.
So at the moment, in your search for a sponsor or mentor, what are you looking for?
Yeah, because it's a different stage of life, right? When I was in my early career, that's when Professor Campbell was quite useful, right? Now that he's no longer, with us. So in this second stage, which I would say, the mid-career, going towards the professorship. So at this stage, the mentoring needs to be very much, if you like, strategic, in the sense that who is able to guide you to become a professor. So you need to look up to people who have been in academia. So for me, it would be people who are publishing in top journals, people who are grant savvy and getting, lots of grants, if you like, so that people who are doing much better than you in academic area, so you can seek advice and follow their pathway. So one important thing is that if you have some mentors or role models, that you can follow their pathway to see that where do they publish, where they're getting grants, how they're, forming groups for collaboration. Because in academia, it's all about collaborations, your research teams. We work in teams, hardly we work, individually. I know that's the perceived, if you like, people perceive us that we are individuals sitting in our rooms and giving lectures. No, that's not how it works. Yeah. We are always working with people. In research projects, we bring in multiple different, capacity, different knowledge, and we do multidisciplinary research more than ever now before. So it's having those, if you like, criteria met. So I say that finding the next mentor and sponsor is you have to be strategic about it.
Fantastic. Those are really great tips that I think people can take back in their own search for sponsors and mentors as well. So I'm curious to hear more about, I guess, next about, the sort of perhaps challenges in the information systems industry, and if there's anything that needs to happen in that industry to create more opportunities for culturally diverse women. Because, you've mentioned how we have to work doubly hard in order to get a promotion. What can we do about this?
This is, this is still still the case because of, I guess, as a culturally, linguistically diverse, background women, we have to prove ourselves, to be worthy of, if you like, the promotion or the next career progression. But I guess one of the biggest challenge we face is still the language barrier, because English not being our first language, we don't write as eloquently, if you like, as an English speaking person, right? So even in academia, that could be a challenge if you can't write well, because you really have to have writing skills to be able to publish, to be able to build those arguments. So you might have a bright idea, you might have great solutions that you've prepared, but if you're not being able to put that into writing, it becomes a problem. So I guess lots of, if you like, workshop, capacity building workshops, writing workshops would help. Attending those workshops does help. So I know that universities are doing that a lot now as well. And otherwise, of course, we always get, grant writing workshops and, different methodology workshops. So yeah, so I guess the point I'm raising here is that you always have to keep on upskilling yourself and be curious. You have to have the curious mind to be an academic, and a researcher, especially in IT as well, right? If it's just think of in general STEM field, like technology field, it's a moving target. Everything changes in 5 years' time, right? We are talking about AI even today, right? I'm sure in 10 years' time, we'll be talking about something very different. So it's important to keep up with what's happening in the industry and upskill. So get those trainings. Even if it's difficult, for some of us, especially women from multicultural background, we have lots of other responsibilities, right? We have expectations, cultural expectations, norms, if you like, family, like looking after the family, it's our duty. So sometimes for this type of training upgrade, we can't find time. So I think the challenge there is that how do you find that time? So a conversation with a supervisor, to allocate, some time in your workload, conversation with your family to allocate some time for you to upskill is probably another, important trajectory for our trajectory. So it's always improving yourself. I always say that you need to be a best version, of yourself. And the only way we can do this by just improving ourselves, getting new skills and upgrading.
Yeah, no, that's a really important point, because I guess, if you're not growing, you're actually dying. I heard someone say that before. And especially in an area like academia, things, like you said, things are moving so quickly, and there's always like new papers or new discoveries or new research that's coming along. You do have to really be on top of it and be aware, I guess, of where things are going to. And I'm curious about the point that you mentioned about how it's important to keep up with what's happening with the industry. Would you mind sharing how do you do that so that other people can learn from you about that too?
I think the way we do in academia is obviously we attend conferences. We go to yearly conferences, and in our field, you would know which conference is the best. And usually it is highly recommended that you go to international conferences plus a local one as well. So on a regular basis, I would go either to one international conference or a local conference. Also, you need to, keep up your reading, keep track of all the journal articles that are coming out, looking at the tracks in the conferences to see what's coming up next. And then also to keep up with the industry, I think one of the best things you can do is network with industry. So I network a lot with women in ICT in Canberra. And that's where I find what's happening in the industry. So going to industry forums, networks. And also in LinkedIn is another good way, connecting people and then joining groups that are relevant. And so, yeah, these are some of the ways you sort of keep up. So you always have to sense what's the next disruptive technology coming and what does this mean for you as an academic or, as a technology in workplace. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think those are fantastic tips and things that people can take away to try and fit into their time. And that all comes back into time management, I think, planning all these things and making sure that they are happening and being intentional about doing those networking and collaborations and industry connections as well. So now this is a question I like to ask every person who comes on the interview, and that is, what advice would you give to other culturally diverse women who are pursuing a career in STEM?
I think first of all, as it's a blessed career. You can't go wrong when you come to STEM, because there is you innovate stuff. You're always working with new things, so there is always, if you like, exciting things happening. It's not a repetitive job, so it's always challenging, but challenge brings excitement and passion in work. So I always say that STEM is an excellent career for women. The perception that in STEM there is more male than, it's a male dominated industry. To some extent it's correct. We know statistically it's correct. In public service we know that there is more women than men now, but in STEM career we know it's only 30%. But it's slowly growing. So some of the challenges cult women might face when they're in STEM are not different to any other profession. So the language barrier, right? The cultural adjustment, some of the discrimination of competency, like, men are perceived to be more competent in STEM than women, but we have now obviously lots of role models, and to show that it's as much rewarding for women as much as men. And we also want to also understand that, yes, there could be sometimes you would feel that you are always an outsider. You will feel that you have to constantly change to fit into the culture of STEM. It's not just STEM, it's like, being culturally different. We have those challenges. So I would say that always be, proud of your skin. Always be comfortable, about yourself. So imposter syndrome is real thing, and we should always challenge ourselves to think beyond, that we are capable of doing things. So my advice to everybody is that if you feel excited about, STEM, like science and technology excites you, then do not stop, because it is a rewarding career. And it's not technical. We don't sit in cubicles. We have exciting things, we do. We innovate, we work with, the future. And there is many ways you can contribute.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great advice. And I think I love the fact that, I guess, I think we will talk a lot about passion and being excited about the work that we do, especially in terms of how we find fulfillment in our job. And there is something that's innately rewarding about working in STEM. I think it's because what we're doing is going to impact humankind. And a lot of us who are scientists who come into STEM, we are in it because we want to make things better for everyone. That's my belief anyway. We're trying to make a difference for other people as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so that reward does come in from there.
Yeah.
Now,
So
sorry, you go.
No. So Chloe, I was going to add that, one of the things that I'm very passionate about bringing more girls, into STEM. So one of the things that are beyond this academic life I have, which you have, when you introduced me, you talked about ALO Enlightened Women. So ALO Enlightened Women is one of my passion project, which is a way of me giving back to the community. And we work with migrant women and migrant women's empowerment and leadership and literacy and capacity building training programs. So part of that program, we are running a campaign called See It to Be It. That means you can't be what you can't see. And that's very important in STEM, because in STEM, we see that there's lots of role models now. And when you look up to them, you can understand that, that you can see yourself to be one of them as well. So that is one of the things that we are, very passionate about. So working with Women in ICT Canberra, I was able to raise awareness, if you like, and advocate for more women in STEM and especially in leadership roles. So as part of our program, as part of ALO, we just don't do, programs that helps women who are struggling, but we also help women who want to be leaders as well. So we run programs on CALD Women in Leadership in Technology. So that's one of the things I am very passionate about as well.
Oh, fantastic. Now, that's really, really good to hear. I have to talk to you a bit further after this to find out people who can come onto my podcast as well then.
Yeah,
more
I'm sure I
guests.
have
Yeah,
few role models that I can suggest.
absolutely. Fantastic. So thank you so much, Lubna, for sharing your stories and insights with us today. I mean, we've heard about how you got started in science and how, you've really achieved quite a lot through the challenges of being a mom while doing a PhD and working full time and having to navigate, I guess, the circumstances around academic promotion as well, which can still be an issue today as well. And I really appreciate, how you shared about how we can be reaching out to sponsors and mentorships and how we need to be using that as a way to help us in our careers too. And I think it's so important to realize, I guess, what we can bring to the table as well. Not only just as women, but also as culturally diverse women, that we have that unique perspective and experience that we can give to others as well. And people need to be aware of that value that we bring and not see any language barriers or writing barriers as an impediment to what we can contribute to society as well. So thank you so much again for sharing your stories. I really appreciate it. Now, I love for you, and then thanks so much for sharing about ALO Enlightened Women too, actually. So I love for you to tell us more about how people can be connecting with you and perhaps find out more about what you do with ALO Enlightened Women.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me, Chloe. So the best way to connect is please connect with me on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, so you should find me as Lubna Alam. And also for my organization, ALO, if you can, we have a web page, so www.alowomen.org, org.au. And also, if we are very active in Facebook and LinkedIn as well. So ALO Enlightened Women has a, if you like, LinkedIn page and also a Facebook page. We are regularly offering multiple capacity building workshops through these, platforms. And our aim is to lower the barriers for migrant women, to reach their full potential. So yeah, please connect with us in ALO and also connect with me in LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. So I'll definitely be popping all those links so that all our listeners can get in contact with you. So thanks again for sharing. And we've reached the end of our show. So thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others or leave a rating and review. Now, if you have any questions about the things we covered in the show or would like to follow my projects, please find me on Instagram and LinkedIn. So thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you at the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Cold Voices in STEM podcast. Get the show notes, links, and resources from today's episode by visiting drchloelim.com.